Let me know when we're live.
Live now.
All right, well, welcome to your third student council session. Let's go ahead and pray. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for opportunity for these young people to get together and to talk about things that they would like to do in the school year and just give them wisdom and understanding. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, just real briefly, I just wanted to say, I think I mentioned last month the story about how Texas became a state. I think I talked about that. So you never stop learning. And now that I'm an educator, I guess I feel like I have more responsibility to make sure you guys are getting accurate information. So I do this thing, I don't even know if anybody knows, but on Facebook on Thursdays, I do this thing called Thoughtful Thursday for the school. If you didn't know it, we do that. You can do it. You can know it now, and you can go on there, or you can, if you don't have a Facebook account, your parents do. You remind them. There's usually something interesting on there on Thursdays. So right before the election, I said, "Oh, well, that's a cool story. I'll share that story." So, and I grew up with Adventures in Odyssey, and you guys grew up with Adventures in Odyssey a little bit here and there. So there was that episode that told that story. That's how I knew that story. It's called A Single Vote, and it's probably about as old as I am, probably 30 years old, maybe not quite that long, but really cool episode, really cool story. So like, okay, that'll be fun to share. And Focus on the Family actually had that broadcast air on their daily broadcast, not the actual Odyssey broadcast, so it's actually available. You can go listen to it without any cost. So I was all fired up, ready to put that out there. And I said, okay, I guess I should do my due diligence as an educator. Just make sure that the story is basically true. So that resulted in about an hour or so of research, and by the time I was done, I was not happy. And so I wanted to tell you, so you guys get the right story, tell you the real story. So basically, about a third of the story was true. And if you piece it together with some other parts of history, it sort of is true, but yeah. So I'll just tell you the real story. And just so you know, I did write Odyssey, said, hey, what gives? How did you miss this? I haven't heard back from him. So I'm not going to judge Odyssey other than, one of the important things as Christians is we need to have a reputation for facts and knowing what the truth is, even when the truth doesn't always line up with what we would like things to be. I was hearing a pastor a while back, or I guess he's not a pastor, but someone, Christian involved in culture who talked about, did you guys hear about the red cup at Starbucks controversy a couple years ago? Starbucks, we don't go to that horrible place. Kidding. But Starbucks is, they're known for giving money to liberal causes. They're not exactly a bastion of Christianity per se, but there was a big controversy a couple years ago because someone went online and said, look, Starbucks has taken any reference to Christmas off their red cups. They just have this red cup that doesn't have any reference to Christmas. It's just whatever. And it was a really big, kind of social media uproar. Well, the problem is that if you actually went back and looked at all the cups that Starbucks had issued at Christmas time, they had never really had any distinctive Christmas message on their cups, which isn't surprising coming from Starbucks. They're, not that big of a deal. But they weren't, the point was, the move that particular year to do whatever they did wasn't anti-Christmas. They hadn't done anything different than they had done the last 6 or 7 years. And unfortunately, a lot of Christians got involved in the yelling match in social media, and they didn't have their facts right. And that's always a problem. So, like I said, that episode was created 30 years ago. I don't know what Odyssey was using for their source material, and for all I know, maybe what they used they thought was pretty reliable and whatever. But it took me an hour to basically get the basic facts of everything in the story, and a lot of it wasn't actually true. So here's the true story, because it's still really interesting, and it's still something you guys can take with you. So first of all, Texas did become a state by one vote, or was annexed. That's the process, because we actually annexed the thing, and then there's a vote for the people back in Texas. There's a couple different votes involved, where actually the people in the state have to vote to become a state as well. But the actual vote in the Senate to annex Texas was by one vote. Now here's the interesting thing. That was the first piece of information that I had to spend some time getting to the bottom of, because some websites were immediately saying, no, it wasn't one vote, it was a margin of 2. It was 27-25. And of course, you just look at the margin, you're like, and that's what I couldn't believe. Like, how can you get this wrong? I mean, this is not, you don't have to dig that deep to find the answer to this. What was the vote in the Senate? We're not talking about a lot of votes here. You didn't have to do a recount or anything like that. This is very simple. So it's like, why did Odyssey get this wrong? So, well, I found out that actually in the process of the voting, amongst the first couple times that they voted on it, the very first time that they did the vote, it was a tie, 26-26. And then, whatever it was, either a couple days or a couple weeks later, one of the senators changed his mind and switched his vote for Texas statehood. Now, here's the interesting thing where you have to look past that superficial number. Isaiah, if I have 50 guys in a room and I'm going to divide them, or let's say I'm going to put a team. Let's do it this way. I say we're putting together a soccer team. You like soccer?
Yeah.
What do you like? What sport do you like?
Fencing, but that's a single person sport.
That would be a little hard for my analogy. You like basketball at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say a basketball team. And you got what? You need at least five guys on the court, right? So you have a team of 5. If I take one player, so there's 5 on one side and 5 on the other, and I take one player and I move him over to the other side, how many people are on each team?
10.
Well, that's the total, but how many people on each team? The guy who got the player now has how many?
4.
6, and the guy who lost the player has
4.
How much is that differential? 6 and 4.
That's 2.
2, but how many people changed?
1.
1. So these geniuses who just said, oh no, Texas became a vote by 2 votes. Well, no, not really, because the tie vote switched. He went from one team over to the other, so now you have a difference of 2. So anyway, that was interesting. Now here's the thing. Honesty said that the change vote was a senator from Indiana, a guy named James Harrigan. Well, no, that wasn't true. The vote was actually a guy named Henry James from Louisiana. That's the end of the story. Henry James from Louisiana changed his mind and decided to vote for Texas. So then I said, okay, so who is this Harrigan guy? Well, it turns out there never was a senator from Indiana named James Harrigan. There was a senator named, like, Edmund Hannigan. So why they changed the names and why they did all that, I have no idea. But he was a senator from Indiana at that time, and he did vote for Texas statehood, but he never changed his mind. He wasn't the decisive vote in that thing. Now, interesting enough, he was a decisive vote in another big decision, and that was the United States declaring war on Mexico. And that was a pretty big deal because that war expanded our territory more than we had done since the Louisiana Purchase. It was a huge, huge deal. That's actually what brought areas eventually like Texas and New Mexico and Arizona, those different places, into the country. And of course, Texas was independent from Mexico for a long time, or not for a long time, but for a while, and then became part of it. But anyway, so that was a huge policy issue. Edward Hannigan was elected by the Indiana State Legislature by a margin of 1 vote by a guy named Madison Marsh. Now, again, the interesting thing is there's not really any evidence, I don't think, to say that Madison Marsh, and again, remember, back in those days, the state legislators elected their senators. We don't do that anymore. We have direct election of senators now. But so Madison Marsh was elected by he was the one vote that voted, or he was part of the legislature that voted for Hannigan. There's not any evidence, I don't think, that he was necessarily the decisive vote either. Of course, if he hadn't, then the guy would have been elected. So you could argue that his vote was decisive. And here's where Odyssey's story was pretty close. And that was the story of Jameson Shoemaker. Well, as it turned out, there was nobody named Jameson Shoemaker, but there was a guy named Henry Shoemaker. So why they changed it from Jameson, Henry to Jameson, I don't know. And he was a farmhand in Indiana, and he had personally met Madison Marsh, and he wanted to vote for him. And he actually kind of forgot, or whatever, however the story goes, he didn't make it to the ballot office until late on election day, and they were out of ballots with Madison Marsh's name on it. So he actually made his own ballot and put Madison Marsh's name, and the folks at the ballot office accepted his vote, and they counted it, and Madison Marsh won in that district by 1 vote, by Henry Shoemaker's vote. Now, here's the part of the story that Odyssey didn't tell at all, which was really interesting. When the votes came in from that district, the Indiana Election Committee would not accept his provisional ballot. They said, no, we're not going to accept it. No good. Well, that decision got challenged, and I don't know how it all worked, but the way it worked is that the state legislature of Indiana actually, they made a vote deciding whether to let that provisional ballot stand in that district. And they voted to accept it, and Henry Shoemaker's vote made the difference. So, you could make the argument that Henry Shoemaker's vote got Madison Marsh into office, and if Madison Marsh was in office, his vote helped get Hannigan elected as a senator, and Hannigan's vote brought the United States into war with Mexico, which expanded our territory. So, now you know. You go online, the story about Shoemaker is really interesting. The bottom line of the whole story is that 1 vote can make a difference, and it's important to take that responsibility seriously. But the thing that I learned from that was, again, our responsibility as Christians. Know your facts. Be a Berean. Not just of the Bible, but of everything. God wants us to take the truth seriously no matter what it might be. So, there you go. All right. President Cox, come on up and have at it.
All right. Well, so that was a very fascinating story that Mr. Fischer just told. So today we're going to talk about doing fundraisers. We're going to talk about the expo coming up. We're going to talk about what was the other thing?
Field trips?
The field trips. Yes, field trips. So, what should
Do you want to use your notes?
I do? Actually, do you want to just come up and talk about the what you had planned?
The only fundraiser I have down is the bake sale. So did you want to
Bake
talk
sale.
about
Oh,
this?
yes. Yeah, so the bake sale. So last year we did a bake sale around the holidays, and we had a lot of different things that we sold. We had some pumpkin bread, we had some cinnamon swirl bread, we had some oranges we sold.
Yeah.
What was the other thing?
Banana bread.
Banana bread too. And it actually turned out really well. It was a great fundraiser. We actually made I guess it was worth it basically. So I was thinking we probably should do that again. So we're gonna need people to volunteer to make bread and kind of get it out, get the word out, and try to sell it. And we could start by selling it to our just people in the school, and we could also, if you guys have neighbors that are nice enough that you could actually go to their doorstep and sell it to them, then we could do that. And so who is interested in maybe making some bread and selling it?
Okay,
Anyone?
so
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to come up or
Yeah,
just
you can come
stay
up.
here? Okay. So what we did last year was we sold each loaf for $7 a piece, and so the bread I was thinking about this year was cinnamon swirl bread, pumpkin bread, and lemon blueberry bread. I'm not sure, Mr. Joel. Is lemon blueberry bread a Christmas bread?
Let's see why it couldn't be.
Okay, that's my thoughts too. Just making sure. Yeah. So, because of the nature of a bake sale, you'll have to do advertising on yourself, the making of yourself. I have links I can send out to the recipes I was thinking of, and then making the bread by yourself on your own, and then delivering it and collecting payment and giving it to Mr. Joel. And so yeah, that's just a responsibility you have to have. So yeah, and then taking initiative to advertise to neighbors, friends, and like that. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's obviously a really great opportunity if you guys just kind of like get out there and practice selling stuff. And being more active in your neighborhood. So does anyone actually want to do that right now? Does anyone want to volunteer to do that?
I have a question.
Sure.
You said selling around the holiday. Well, how would we sell it to people at the school? Because there's not a workshop before Christmas, correct?
Good point.
So how do we distribute it to people who hear a workshop?
So we could do it a couple ways. We could either we could go and deliver it to them directly and actually like drive it to their house, or we could have this office location. I think this is how we did it last year. We used this office location as kind of like a pickup location, and we made the bread, we brought it here, and then they would come and pick it up. And just saying, not.
Yeah, we delivered it.
Okay, so I was just saying we delivered it last year.
You had a combination of the bake sale and citrus fundraiser, and you did do the orange. So it's not that you couldn't do something like that with the bread as well.
Yeah, I got that mixed up. The oranges, we were selling oranges, and we used the office here as a pickup location for the oranges. But that's certainly an idea we could do. We could use, especially if someone isn't going to be like in a location, we could just like drive to their house.
The other way is to also kind of get an idea of other people in the school who live generally near you. I mean, you could do it that way. And you don't have to, I mean, certainly include other people in the school for, for buying, but you can expand. You don't have to, you can do anybody.
Right, yeah.
Your relatives, your church, your people who are interested in supporting or penniless youth, holidays who are forlorn and can't go on that trip to Bahamas for their class trip.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're not in public school. I don't think they go to Bahamas.
Yeah, but so you guys, I guess so you don't have to decide today. You guys can think about it.
Well, maybe you should take a vote on whether or not they want to do the fundraiser.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good idea because we haven't even decided. So, who's in favor of actually doing this fundraiser this year?
And if you don't fundraise at all, you can't participate in student council activities.
Yeah. So if you want to go on like the field trip, which we're thinking of doing, field trip to DC, and having Mr. Beal.
Yeah, either that or you have to pay. You can't use student council funds to pay your way if you didn't participate.
Yeah. So if
you have to pay your own way.
Yeah. So if you have to, if you don't get a chance to do any of the fundraising, and you really want to go on one of the field trip or activities that we do, if we went to the Wilds or DC or something, then you have to pay your own way. So it's just I guess keep that in mind.
It's kind of like paying into insurance and like take out what you need.
Yeah. That's it.
Just without any disaster, hopefully.
Yeah, that's pretty good. No. Yeah. So who's in favor of actually even doing the fundraiser? I know so we've got pretty much everyone except for Josh. And why?
Good job, Mr. President. Way to bring the council all together. That's great. Love it.
All right. So everyone's in favor, pretty much. So great. So we're planning on doing that. Does anyone know right now? I just asked a question, but now that we all know we want to do this, does anyone want to make any of the desserts or breads?
It might be easier since we don't have another meeting after holidays that each person who's selling to 3 people make their own bread.
Well, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Just, and I don't know if this will help out some of you more, and you guys can, you don't have to do this, I'm just throwing this out there. Some of you, I'm gonna go out on a limb,
Okay.
are probably better bakers than others.
Very true.
Just going out there, I'm gonna put that out there. And some of you probably feel a little more comfortable talking with people and connecting with people than other people. So, an idea is, if you would like, you could have designated bakers and designated marketeers, as it were. Now, and I'm not saying that you're excluded from doing one or the other if you decide to be one or the other, but I'm just saying that could be a way of doing it. If you can work out, you know, if the marketer people don't live near where the baked good is going to go, then they need to somehow figure out how it's going to work. But I just throw that out. If some of you guys or gals are intimidated by, I don't know how to make a pumpkin bread, then maybe you can talk to one of the pumpkin bread makers and say, hey, I'll send out some emails and knock on some doors for the both of us, or however you want to do it. I just throw that out there. That, you know, if you want to share the workload that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. So,
But don't have to do that. If you want to be responsible for your own things, that's fine. That's fine too.
yeah. So I guess what I'll do is I'll send out an email this week, and then you guys can I'll have the information in there, and you guys can decide over the weekend. And probably need to have a decision pretty much by, I'd say, December 1st, so that way we can get some.
And what we did last year is we delivered the bread the week before Christmas.
Right.
Because it was like for Christmas.
Yeah, it's for the Christmas holiday, not the Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah.
So we've got some more time to get something together.
I'd
So
say start advertising by December 1st. But
okay. All right. So we decided on doing the bread sale fund, the bake sale fundraiser. Thank you.
And I'll just throw out there that once you have decided the details, which I would encourage sooner than later, we'll blast it out.
Yeah. Okay.
School will blast it out for you.
Awesome. All right. Okay. So we decided on that fundraiser, and we're going to start advertising that. And then the other one is the field trip. We need to decide about the field trip. If we're going to actually do a field trip to DC or not. This is an idea I brought up last meeting, about possibly going to DC for a day or two, maybe even spending the night in DC, but I don't know if we really need to. So that way we can actually benefit from all the monuments and museums in DC. We can just go everywhere. You know, I don't know if we had enough time in 2 days or so. So you could possibly do like a weekend trip, or even just in the middle of the week, like Wednesday and Thursday, or Friday and Saturday, or something like that. And so, who's in favor of doing that? Does anyone want to do that?
And would this take place in the city class trip? Because of funding? It
Possibly.
probably would have to.
Possibly and possibly not, depending on if we spent the night. Probably, but if we didn't, then we. So I think we probably should spend the night in DC. I don't know if we really need to. It's really expensive, so.
It depends on how
I'd
much you
say-
want to put into it. Like if you want to get tour guides, stuff like that.
Yeah. So, and also, so you're the only one in favor of doing that. We got 2, 3, 4. Okay, so only about half of everyone is actually wanting to do that. So maybe we could keep deciding on that. We don't have to do that until the spring or until it gets a little bit nicer weather out. So I'd say maybe April or May at the latest.
So can I just ask a question for
Sure.
council members? This is where you need to give the president feedback.
Yep, please do.
So, like right now,
Yeah.
so half of you really aren't that interested in it. Why are you not interested? What are your concerns? Does the thought of going to DC, is it sicking you? Do you not like to travel? Is it not worth your time? You've been there, done that, or is it the cost? Oh, I don't know how we would ever raise enough money to do that.
Yeah.
Give some feedback. What's your opinion?
That's what that.
So, the reason why I'm not in favor or don't want to do it or in favor is because I don't know what my mom has planned during whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and also it would have to be, if I was to do it, it would have to be like during the weekend. But then again,
Okay.
I don't know what's planned, so and plus I have a busy schedule. So.
Right. Okay. So those are some really good points you brought up there. So you don't know like when it's going to be, and you don't know if you have something else going on.
Yeah.
So.
So in other words, Isaiah, though, but if you had an advance notice enough to know to plan your steps,
That's something
Yeah.
you can plan for. Like,
Yeah. And
so we have probably 2 or 3 votes here that as long as there was enough advance notice, you guys would be, the trip itself is not something that you have a problem with.
No.
Okay, there you go.
great. Okay. So everyone's in favor of doing it, just don't know you'll be able to do it. So
wait, Barry might have more. As long as we're
great.
talking
So.
time, it's good.
And then this is also your time to maybe, if you have a certain like day, like you said, you probably just a weekend would be the only time it would work for you. This is your time to voice your opinion, and so then it would actually work for your schedule. So I think I agree. The weekend would probably be best for me too. So I guess we don't have to decide on that today. We'll keep on thinking about that over the next 2 or 3 months. I think we need to decide by February at the latest, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, so I've been to DC several times, so the only thing you guys probably will need to decide that's time sensitive is if you have an interest in going, to tour some of the places that require advance tickets. I mean, like, if you wanted to try to get a tour of the White House or something like that, those are pretty difficult to do. You guys, the Cox kids were just, they're not too long, so you know how that is. But
it took like 6 months to get tickets in there. So.
But some of the museums require a little bit of advance notice, not usually more than a day or so, but if you wanted to do something like the Pentagon or anything like that, you probably would need to put in a... And then like if you wanted to go up in the Washington Monument, which I believe is open right now, that is something you have to be a little more proactive about.
Yeah, I think you have to like reserve tickets and it costs money to go up there, I think so.
No.
Doesn't? Okay.
Mm-mm.
Alright.
You just have to make sure you have tickets for the day of, and that can be done.
Okay. Alright. Yeah, so I guess we'll just keep on thinking about that. I think we need to decide by either the end of January or end of February. So.
And were you thinking still of potentially asking Bernie, Mr. Beal,
Yes.
to be a participant in that?
Yeah, so I'm thinking he's really a wealth of knowledge about the monuments and stuff in DC, so I think it would be really great to have him give us like a guided tour of, say, the Capitol building, for example. There's lots of really great monuments, and yes, there's just a lot of really cool stuff that he can talk to us about.
Not all of you have probably been around Mr. Beal. You guys don't know who he is? Have any of you ever been on a trip with him before?
Yeah.
just the canal.
Some of you? What, Tim?
Like when we went to the canal.
Okay.
that was-
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know that he is a lot of fun, and yeah, you'll learn stuff that you wouldn't otherwise
Yeah.
know to look for or think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other person. If you want him to be involved, you probably need to check with him
Exactly. Yeah.
his schedule,
Mm-hmm.
because I know he's pretty busy.
Right. Yeah.
And the other possibility with him too is that he might already have if he has a date where he's doing a tour in DC already, you might be able to piggyback
Sure.
potentially on that.
Yeah. Okay. So who's in favor of just like asking him right now about doing a tour and seeing if he has a date available? Date already planned. Okay, so everyone wants to do that. So I'll probably send him an email this week and ask him about that. So we'll probably decide by the end of January about that. I think our next meeting is end of January. So all right. Okay, and then the other thing is Expo. We've got Expo coming up, and we usually have it in the spring. And this year we don't have a location for it because they canceled it. And so, or they canceled the heritage or the Machi curriculum fair. Yeah. So we need to decide if we're actually going to have that this year or not. And that's, in the past, it's always been one of our biggest fundraisers of the year, has been doing the food booth at the expo. So we need to decide on a location for that and if we're actually going to do that. So who's in favor of looking for a place to do that this year? So like half of you. So those of you who don't want to do it, why not? Didn't see your hands raised.
I think that if so, the only reason our food booth didn't cost $700 was because Launch gave it to us free and they paid for it or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we'll probably be able to find another booth like that for free,
Okay.
and that will take a huge part off our profit.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if it was
might not be
something,
worth it.
if it was something small, like just doing it just ourselves or something, we could just have a table in the corner kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Like hot dogs.
Yeah, that's where you probably at this point you need to do an exploratory committee.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, who wants to be a member? But that'd be a really good idea. Like,
So
People who could do some research about what events are happening between now and, April, May.
mhm.
That would be a possibility for you guys doing some sort of fundraiser at the event. And try to keep, if you guys end up doing that, keep me in the loop too, because it might be something we could
Yeah.
look into as far as the expo.
Right. Okay. So who wants to go do some research on like events that are going on? We could have a booth at. No one wants to do that. I know I probably don't have time to, with my schedule the way it is right now, I probably don't have time to do that. So I'm sure all of you don't have time either. So it looks like we don't have any interest in doing
Oh,
that.
come on, you freshmen, even you junior.
You guys don't have as much going on as I do. I don't know.
Are you the officers?
We've got Chastity, myself, Josiah, and Kirsten.
Oh, exactly. I can do a little bit, but I can't dedicate it to
Okay. So you're willing to do some research on
a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
What you mentioned events coming up. Or what area is that in?
Probably in the
St. Louisville,
Maryland.
Frederick, just general area up
Probably-
here.
Probably in the Maryland area.
If you know of anything near you, Jeremiah or Josiah,
Even West Virginia or Virginia area.
I'd throw it out there. Probably Maryland is going to be a better shot just because we're a Maryland-based school and you're
Yeah.
from there, but they're smiley, generous, happy people all over this wonderful land. Not many in West Virginia, but actually, there are lots of happy, smiley people down there just with less teeth. That's all.
There is one thing. So we have a church convention every year.
Awesome.
I'm not sure if the booths are open
Okay.
to like other people out there. I can ask that, but
Okay.
there's like over 1,000 people that come to it, so I can
Wow.
check that out.
So is it just your church?
Yeah, it's our church for the
Other-
missionaries, but I can ask if
Okay.
we can get a booth.
What's it called?
It's just the Greater Grace Church National Convention.
Okay.
It's in Baltimore, so
Yeah. Do you guys invite other churches to come and have
Well,
booths
people
there?
from all over the world. So it's like,
Okay.
I guess so the church in Baltimore is like the home church, and then everybody, Africa, everybody just like comes there. It's like a conference, but there's like booths in the parking lot.
Okay.
So there's like tons of food.
Now,
Sure.
is it in the spring? When is it?
it's in
It's in June.
June. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe you could.
Late June.
June. All right. Yeah. So So- would you guys be willing to do some research on that and see if they'd even
Yeah, I can ask.
be fine about that? Okay. Thank you.
You probably have to find an event that's before graduation.
True, because I won't be here in June.
Okay.
But keep that in mind. It might be something that we can still look into.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
you could
for
have
the
the
next
June
class.
one for, the next.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I could help organize it up until I graduate. And all right, so that's a really great idea. And I guess you can keep on trying to find something like that in the area too, just in case that one falls through. And all right, so talked about Expo. We're gonna try to find a location, and we talked about our fundraiser coming up. Does anyone have any other ideas about fundraiser we could do, like the big sale? Yes.
Car wash,
Yeah.
car washes.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
What about you?
I was just gonna say for the future workshops,
Yeah.
if we all just brought a small basket of baked goods and put them in the church or over here at the office, that people would
Sure.
try. I know they've done that in the past. I don't know
Yeah,
how well they can do. We could always just try it and see how it works.
it's a good idea. I know
Probably
recently.
wouldn't bring in a whole lot.
Yeah, I know recently the workshop crowd has been a little bit dwindling, so it's kind of, I don't know if that'd be worth it.
That's why your best shot for fundraiser for that's going to be mid-years, because
Yeah.
people have to be here for that,
That's a good point. Yeah.
mainly.
Let's start with this.
Unless they're live streaming, but anybody with a senior has to be here.
Okay, and we've got 13 seniors this year, so
Right,
They
so
better
there
be
you
here.
go. You got 13 families who will be here for that.
yeah. So let's definitely plan on doing mid-years, doing a big sale at Makers. Sub sale, yep, that's a good idea. We could even do like a pizza sale, get some Papa John's or something.
Costco.
Oh, actually, no, we did this up.
What about, you guys like Costco? Is Costco good?
It's probably cheaper than Papa John's.
Really? And the other idea is we could do Chick-fil-A. I could get my Chick-fil-A to give us a discount of some sort, and we could do a little Chick-fil-A bake sale, kind of like a sub sale idea, where we just have everyone pre-order and we don't have to like get a ton of Chick-fil-A. We just get enough for each person who orders it. So that's also an idea. So maybe we could keep on talking about that. Although it is before, that is our next meeting, the Major Teachers Conference, right? Or
Right, so I mean, you can definitely communicate it and organize it.
Okay.
But if you want to go ahead and do that, yeah.
yeah, I think we should certainly do that. Who's in favor of doing like a little Chick-fil-A bake sale? Okay. All right. Well, let's plan on doing that. I'll kind of get that organized this month, and so
Go ahead and give me the information you got, Jeremiah, and then we can include it in our information for mid-years.
okay. All right. Sounds good. And does anyone have any questions? Any other ideas? All right. Yes.
Just adding to mid-years with doing Chick-fil-A or subs or whatever.
Mhm.
We should probably we could always bring chips and sodas and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Because those always so.
Yeah, and they're really cheap. Chips and sodas are both from Sam's Club. They're just a really good fundraiser.
Maybe
So
some candy as well. I don't know.
yeah, I agree.
I don't know, a gallon of Chick-fil-A lemonade sounds pretty good to me.
That's true. Maybe we should have some of
Are you
that.
signing up for one now?
I didn't say anything about paying, I just said it sounded good.
Yep.
Alright, what, do you know how much those are, Jeremiah?
The gallons.
Because that's totally something you could potentially do.
I know. I should know that. I think it's around $6, but we'd probably have a markup on it, so we can make some money. But
If you could get a small discount, then we could charge a little bit more than the cost, and with your discount, we could probably
Sure.
get a decent
yeah, so
profit.
it would be competitive. Yeah, so I'll definitely do some research on that, and I'll send out an email about all the things we talked about. So, does anyone else have any other questions, comments, concerns? Yeah.
Did you send out an email since last workshop? Because if you
I did
have,
not.
okay, I could.
No.
I haven't gotten any emails, and I just wanted to
Yeah,
verify.
did I say I was gonna
something.
send out an email?
I don't know.
Kirsten was supposed to. All right. Well, we will send out an email pretty soon here. Probably do it this week or next week. So, all right with that. Does anyone else have anything? Last minute? Okay. Yeah.
I think we should decide if we want to do the trip to DC instead of the senior trip, just so we can figure out how much we're gonna put into the DC trip.
That's a good idea. Okay.
So who wants to do Wilds opposed to DC?
Does everybody know what Wilds is?
You know, it's like
It's a Christian like camp.
It's really closely
it's-
associated with BJ.
Oh, it is? Okay.
And I just probably would say that at this point, the Wilds trip is likely going to be at the most for, it's not going to extend down to junior high.
Right. But at least just for high school.
I mean, technically they count it as a senior class. I think we've argued juniors in,
Yeah.
and we could maybe strenuously argue for sophomores.
Okay.
So I just
Very
throwing it
cool.
out there. Generally, those sorts of things have been designated for seniors. So
Okay.
looking at your crowd, you know there are 2 seniors here. So that's just throwing it out there.
Yeah. All right. So I will send out an email to the seniors about doing the class trip, and if I get any interest, then we'll think about that a little bit more seriously.
Well, and part of your research might be reaching out to the Wilds to say, hey, we're multi-level. I mean, I could even do that.
Okay.
I could even shoot them an email for it if you wanted to say, hey,
Okay.
and those are the sorts of things. If if you're deciding on the Wilds, that's where we really have to move fast.
Okay. So when is the deadline for registering for it if we want to do it in like April or May?
All I know is they fill it fast.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well.
I think generally in years past, we'd always kept that reserved.
Mhm.
And because we didn't go last year, that didn't really happen. So,
Okay. All
but
right.
you can see we can see what their availability is in terms of what they do.
Okay. All right. We'll look into that. And
Right.
so we don't have a whole lot of. So who is interested in doing the Wilds trip instead of the DC trip? Okay. We've only got 3 people interested.
I want a lot out. Yeah.
All right. So pretty much everyone's interested. So if we can get a big enough group together, and we can get a slot together, then we'll do the Wilds trip instead of the DC trip. But then we'll have the DC trip as a backup if the Wilds trip falls through. So sound good? All right. And anything else? Okay. All right. This is adjourned. You're adjourned. You're dismissed.
All right, very good. Yep, you guys are dismissed.
Oh, do we have a date for student council forum?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Thank you.
I haven't stopped streaming yet. You want to keep on?
Yes, I
keep on going?
You haven't stopped streaming yet? The question was just asked, do we have a date for the student council forum? Someone remind me, when did we do it last year?
The spring.
Did we do it in the spring, like March?
Instead of BFSG.
Or was it May?
No, it was, we tried to do a field day in May, and that didn't happen.
Oh, all right.
Oh, it was
Okay,
March.
you're right, so it was March. So yeah, I guess we'll get that nailed down, but yeah, so just so you guys know what a student forum day is where basically everybody comes in and we have fun talking about a real live issue going on in the culture and coming up with solutions to how to deal with that. And last year we did what's that?
Kind of like a debate, but like not debate.
Not a hostile debate,
Yeah.
a constructive debate, where you get to have basically groupthink discussions, figuring out how can we do this, what needs to happen. And then when we did this last year, ended with a manifesto, student manifesto addressing the issue with specific practical ways to deal with it. So it's kind of a fun exercise, and I may or may not promise donuts for breakfast, maybe pizza for lunch, but probably not both. All right, very good. And just okay, since it's still streaming, I was going to say, you all know the story of the chicken who went to make bread. You guys grew up with that story? Josh is nodding his head. All right. I'm trying to remember. I think it's called The Little Hen. The Little Hen. The story of the Little Red Hen.
I think that rings a bell. It rings a bell.
So, basic scenario, the Little Red Hen, she finds, She finds like a stock of grain, wheat. And she says, who will help me thresh the wheat? She asks, the pig, and the pig says, not I, says the pig, not I. So, you guys remember that story? So she does that. She keeps asking for help, participation, and then she finally gets the bread baked, and the bread comes out of the oven, and it smells wonderful, and like all the animals say, hey, that looks great. And she says, yeah, but you guys aren't having any of it. And they're like, well, why not?
Keep that in mind, guys.
Because you didn't thresh, you didn't do any of those things. So reminder, please consider how you can be involved, and even like with this bake sale you're going to do over the holidays. This is something that you can participate in without having to, you don't have to drive a great distance. You can do it right where you are.
Yeah.
So you can participate. So it's good practice for things to come, because there's always going to be opportunity to participate and be involved. All right? Good. Let's see. That was a great question, Chastity. Let's look at that. That was a Friday. We did that on a Friday, so we'll probably.
It would be best to do it on Wednesday because we have soccer Friday.
Soccer?